get cash, cause your body can't afford it. Don't you know who I am? You better give a damn. I'm with the band, man. Bask in my glory and tell me a story of how great you think I am.
Hey, this is Eric dispatching solo again tonight, and I'm with the band, man. Welcome back. This is going to be part two of the conversation with TJ Milici of Logan's Lost, the Eclectics, Divide by Zero, Spitalfield, Thrillage, so many other bands. But primarily for this part of the conversation, we are focusing on Divide by Zero's one and only amazing full length right there, Answer to No One. Uh, Great conversation, great deep dive into the album. Uh, Kind of interesting finding out that the album Answer to No One kind of got its name from the final track, Except Ourselves, which was the song that was kind of quickly, furiously written going into the studio. It's always interesting for me to find out when we're talking to whomever kind of the timeline for the album, when the songs were written, how they changed, how they evolved from the initial band putting the songs together to the demo, if one existed, to going into the studio. In this case, again, kind of interesting story. They had built that relationship with Jumpstart Records. They never really had to create a demo to send off to the studio. So, or to the label. So by the time they were ready to go into the studio, they kind of had their ideas for what the songs were going to be. Um, Wrote, nine of the songs, I guess, kind of at that point. They re-recorded Timber, which was an earlier recorded song, and then Accept Ourselves was kind of written last. It was the last track on there, which probably couldn't ask for a better closer for the album. So that was beautiful. That was amazing. And kind of talking to him about thematically what was going on in the album and kind of his emotional and mental headspace, recording some of the earlier songs. By his admission, songwriting was not necessary, or lyric writing, I guess, was not something that always came natural to him. So, kind of writing with what he knew, girls, relationships, whatever that was going on. And then, kind of near the end of that, when they were recording the album, especially in the studio, when he was writing Except Ourselves, maturing as a songwriter. And that's one of the things that he and I talk about is kind of thematically what that did to the album, kind of left the listener, left him on that note of positivity. There's some optimism there, right? It was uplifting near the end. Um, and, and again, kind of looking at the order that the tracks were put on, um, kind of gets dark for a little bit, and then you can see the light, and it gets uplifting at the end. So, very, very well put together album. Really, really nice that TJ kind of reached out to some of the other guys, got some of their opinions, even reached out to Dan Precision, who recorded the album for him. Uh, just kind of reliving what it meant in that moment for those guys recording that album. And I have to agree that those four guys recorded the best album that they possibly could have. It shows. It's an amazing album. Again, kind of length be damned for how long some of those songs are. It's an amazing album, and I know he couldn't believe it when I told him it was in one of my top 10, but I do think that Answer to No One is one of my top 10 albums. So it's it's easier for Chicago bands to kind of sneak in there, just because that was, the local scene that I was a part of, that I was, and if not a participant, at least an observer, for that period of time, for those years. An album that really spoke to me, as he and I talk about right at the beginning of the episode. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. doing the deep dive into Answer to No One. Absolutely amazing. The Jumpstart reissued it in that nice yellow vinyl, uh, almost 20 years after the fact. Uh, Great conversation. TJ is an amazing, amazing guy. Really, really humbled that he took time out to talk to me. We were able to talk about pretty much everything and anything that I ever wanted to ask him about. He was on my bucket list for a while. I knew there was something magical about this album, and I'm glad that he was kind of able to peel back the cover a little bit and show just what it was that made the album so amazing. So even if you only enjoy this 25% as much as I did, you're still gonna have an amazing time listening to it. So uh hope you enjoy it. Check in with you at the end. And yeah, have a good one.
Who turned off the northern lights? These dark skies used to be so bright. Yeah, and bury me inside your catacombs. Wonder Rome is where I'll call my home, Lauren. Together means never, Lauren. Your silence can be so fucking violent. And who turns off the northern lights? These dark skies used to be so bright. Yeah, and bury me inside your catacombs. Wonder Rome is where I'll call my home, Lauren. Together means never, Lauren. Your silence can be so fucking violent. And yesterday came a little too late. Words were said in pages torn. Never felt pain like this. Now you're walking through the broken glass. I was driving through Elgin. I started thinking, if you never met me, you'd be so happy. It's the night at the gin mill that made me so ill. It's the night at the grain mill that I can't kill. Lauren, sweet Lauren. And yesterday came a little too late. Words were said and pages torn. You never felt pain like this. Now you're walking through the broken glass.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I am back with TJ Milici, and we are going to do a deep dive into uh, one of my favorite albums of all time, Answer
Oh,
to No One.
stop.
Oh, for sure. And we're
Come
going to get into
on.
the reason for that here in a second. So I was already a huge fan of Divide by Zero, and I know as we were kind of talking offline, saw you guys twice, kind of before the full length hit. The full length hit, I loved it. It was great. perfectly cool. Um, at some future date in my personal life, I went through a messy breakup with a girl named Lauren. And listening to that album, especially the song Northern Lights, I was like, dude, like he's name dropping driving through Elgin, thinking about this girl named Lauren. And I'm like, I am there right now at this exact moment of my life. So even though that album probably would have made its way into my top 10 anyway, that song has cemented it forever because I was like, this guy, he's feeling what I'm feeling. He knows exactly, and it's the same girl. Well,
Does he
obviously,
know?
different girl, but it's the same thing.
Yeah,
So let's talk about this album.
sure.
I I re-listened to it again today, just in preparation for this. And one of the things that really jumped out at me, and right, like I've listened to this album at least 200 times, probably just over the course of my
Wow.
life.
I'm just I'm turning red. That's wonderful.
And it's an amazing album, but I don't often listen to albums that deeply and just kind of put the headphones on and just kind of sit here and like kind of go into my own sensory deprivation chamber and just focus on the album and the lyrics. Like I had the lyric sheet with me when I was doing that. There is a lot of it, and I'm guessing kind of going back to our original conversation about you maybe not being super comfortable with your vocals, although they're amazing, so don't sell yourself short. Um, but there's a lot of aspects to Divide by Zero where you just kind of let the music breathe. Like a lot of other bands that I listen to from that era, a lot of albums from that era, the vocals are just there, they're just punching all the time. And you let the music breathe. There's just a lot of instrumentalization going on throughout the album. So, I mean, was that intentional? I mean, I guess that's where I'll start the questions.
Sure. I mean, and that's a really good kind of segue into kind of what the band was at the time. I mean, Divide by Zero was caught in between two kind of genres. One, they wanted to be, hot water punk rock band. And then the other wanted to be a kind of an emotional post-punk hardcore band like Thrice or whatever kind of artist in the ambulance band that was going on during that time. And I think that record kind of reflects that if you listen to it in you know in retrospect. If you listen to the whole thing, there are songs that are just self-contained, like they drive, like there's probably like half of them are just like, they're four on the floor, they just crush. And then there's some that are like a bottle of wine. They're, you just open it and you just kind of let it breathe. And the song's got outros and intros. And we were kind of a band that didn't know how to end songs. So some songs might have gone on a little bit too long. Um, but it was a combination of like, you know, I don't know what to sing here because I don't know if this is an outro, is that this is it was just a long extended part of the song. So I just didn't, because it just felt futile. It felt like silly to try to throw some words in there. We were experimenting with a different sound. We were growing as a band. And when Answer to No One came out, because the previous label wanted us to release it as an EP, which we had talked about earlier. Give me your best starting five, pump them out, and we'll see what happens. But we had The Year That Trembled. It was a song that we wanted to kind of put on the record. We had Guillotine, a song that we just written that has this, just a song that was just different. Hold On. These were songs that were not like the first five or six songs that we had written, like Grave or, not even Timber, but like Northern Lights. I think there's another one. Just kind of thinking here, but there were some songs that were like Scars. These are like songs that I was like probably listening to No Division, being like, how does if Chuck was here, how would he write a Divide by Zero song? So we were just caught in between two genres that of styles of music that we really liked, that we were trying to put together. And that's where that comes from. That's where that space comes from. That's where that, you know, how can I be like Hum and how can I be like, you know, Small Brown Bike? Like how can I make those two work, you know?
You know what's incredible? The theme for the last few episodes I've done is hum. Like their DNA being felt through every single band and every single album that I enjoy. And I've myself never really got into hum. They don't speak to me the way they speak to everybody else.
Yeah.
But
Give it a listen.
I'm gonna
Listen
have
to their
to.
latest one.
I'm gonna have to now because if it wasn't for hum, all of these albums that I love and adore wouldn't be around. It's kind of like in my youth, I never really got into the Ramones that much or the
Yeah.
Clash. I never really understood them. But without the Ramones and Clash, we wouldn't have had Rancid, for example.
Yeah.
And I absolutely, well, maybe not modern day Rancid, but 90s Rancid, like one of my favorite bands of all time. So it's one of those where I don't necessarily have to enjoy the influencer as long as I appreciate the influenced. But I am going to have to give Hum another listen because that's
Yeah. I mean, it's just, they're, you know, Illinois band, a band that like, you're like, oh, they're on 120 minutes. Now they're on Conan. It's like, wow. But yeah, that's kind of what Answer to No One was. It was like a record where if we had like not a producer, we had a great Dan Precision from 88 Fingers Louie did a fantastic job. And, but if we maybe would have gone somewhere that bands tend to do, like a studio, a remote site, and they iron out the songs before they record them, there might have been some songs we would have not recorded because maybe we are just trying to get it all out there. Like these are all our songs. Like whether they're 3 minutes or 6 minutes, we're going to record them. So there might have been a little bit of, slicing and dicing to kind of make the record a little bit more fluid. Because I think if you clock it, it's like, it's a long record.
I was actually again, right, I was surprised because I was listening to it today. I loaded up all the tracks and was like 50 minutes. That
Yeah.
seems that
it's,
seems
it's,
long for 11 songs.
it's, it's so long. It's like a joke, like a comedian setting, like a setup. Jumpstart did a re-release for like a vinyl re-release for an LP, and they couldn't fit the whole record on, so they had to drop like a couple. They had to drop like one or two songs. So like the CD and the LP are totally different.
Wow.
Like it's missing like one or two songs.
I'm glad I didn't pick up that re-release because I would not have appreciated.
I mean, it's great. It's a beautiful LP. It's yellow vinyl and everything, but it's just funny that because we did have songs that I mean, we were just so excited to write these songs. I remember playing Hold On our first time we played at the Fireside. We opened up for MU330. And I mean, that song it just wails. Like it's got like this outro that just, at the time when we were writing it, felt like, we had like tons of amps and we just were just crushing it, it was just, um, but yeah, we were Answer to No One is an album where we were a band in transition and we just wanted to release it instead of whatever band we were turning into releasing that record then.
I'm glad that you guys released it as is. So I
And I love
appreciate
Northern
it.
Lights. It's one of my favorite songs.
Um, so when the album gets re-released, do you get input then? Obviously, I'm guessing you were the final say to what songs get dropped if they're like, hey, we can't fit all 11 songs on there. You need to drop. Was it you? Was it collaborative with Jumpstart or
I think Jumpstart was just like, we're going to do it. And I was like, that's great. Whatever you want to do. like I was just really excited. I was just like, send me a copy, please. Because, like you're, I know for a fact that he invested in our band and he helped like get us out and, he helped promote us. And I don't know if we fully paid back that investment. Um, so for him to just be like, I'm going to release your record and a couple other records for like kind of like a celebratory 20th or 25th anniversary of Jumpstart, I was just honored. I was just giddy with excitement. It's a great record. I mean, I've got it in my hand right here. It's beautiful vinyl. It's something that you know we are very proud of as a band, and that it kind of got to this level is really neat. So whatever he wanted to do, it was fine with me.
Um, so something else I noticed on my listen through, like I know you mentioned the song Scars. It almost feels like musically Scars is trying to be kind of a heavier hardcore song with the instruments, but you contain that, you hold it back a little bit with the vocals. Was that intentional to kind of create that dissonance, or is that just how it worked out, or
No, I think so. I think that if you look at the chord progression, it's very like it's a very angry, like chord progression, the drums. Um, it's got a callback, like a back and forth with the guitars in the middle. I mean, it's the drumming is awesome. Brian Lipinski as a drummer was a phenomenal drummer. I mean, he is, you know, guy. There's other bands that still talk about his drumming on the beginning of Hold On, like it's this perfect time drum intro. But I think vocally, we just wanted to kind of put a little maybe sweetener on it,
Mhm.
just uh kind of give this kind of like a two-tone da 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 da, just not make it so like a hardcore song like you said.
Mhm.
And I that was kind of just like maybe a little bit more poppy or pop song, that you can kind of snap to, but the guitars are like da 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 da. I mean, it's a very angry song undertone. um and it gosh, and I think about the lyrics to that song and some other songs. I'm starting to sing about like my life for the first time, and it wasn't that bad now that I think about it. I really I made it sound like it was a bad time to be in a relationship with TJ Melisi.
I mean, everybody was angsty at that point of their life, though.
Oh,
So
totally. Absolutely.
yeah.
You know.
But I mean, like again, right? Think about Scars. It was like the guitars wanted to be a hardcore song, and you were saying, let's keep it more upbeat.
Yeah, the transition to the verse is really fun. It's the like I know what you do. Like it's a fun vocal pattern, and I think I was probably really proud of it. It's probably why I stuck with it. It was like, because I think of like writing a song, like song lyrics is you get a block of marble, and that's the song, and you're chiseling away at the rhythm, right? You're trying to find and I think it was pretty proud of like finding that, like I know it sounds silly now, but I think it was like, oh, I like this. I like how it goes, and it works with, the way I was singing and the words. It was I found a good rhythm in there.
Um, Something else I really want to give you props on, I suppose. Um, a lot of bands from that era, you look through their liner notes, you look at their lyrics and everything, and riddled with either grammar mistakes or typos. You guys are spot on.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I, I'm I'm a grammar Nazi, so when I see bands misusing your. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, did nobody edit this? Did nobody check it over? But you guys, amazing. So I was pleasantly surprised when I was looking through, like, psh, look, they're using all the right yours.
So two funny stories. One deals with Divide by Zero, the other deals with Spitalfield. This is this is just how obviously I'm horrible with words. I misspell stuff all the time still. Just bad. If you go to Mirrors, the record that came out before, and you look at they use my handwriting for
Yep.
for the EP. They use it. And it is. I got like capital letters in the middle of a sentence. It's just like horrible. It's like doesn't make any sense. Flash forward to when I'm in Spitalfield, I do an art I do my own, first time I do something like I create our own hoodie, and we print out 300 hoodies, and I misspell the word your because I use
Oh man.
one of our lyrics, and JD, God bless him, was like, it's kind of fun. It's like a, like a artistic way of, kind of like a Norm Macdonald way of spelling, like what you're doing. It's like, no, man. So Mark had to get his aunt or someone in his family to rescreen like this respell the you are. Ugh. They, we went over the interior of this one very, very well. Like it was, I think from the pictures to the art to we wanted this record to be kind of as good as we could present it, being that this was something that I think we were at the height of everybody's career. My career was probably we didn't want to screw it up.
Yeah, I mean it came through. It's nice, it's crisp, it's clean. Layout
Yeah.
is beautiful. And you also do that thing which a lot of other bands don't, but when you have the lyrics in there, you also have the song number next to that. So you don't have to flip back to the back to know, okay, I'm on track 7. That's great.
Yeah.
Um so I guess kind of before we go into the next question, I know we talked about Timber is also on here, which was also on that little 3 song
Yeah.
kind of teaser mini EP, whatever we're gonna call it. What made you guys decide to stick with that song? Was that kind of that transition song that you felt was showcasing the band you were going to be in, or did you say, "Hey, we want 11 songs, we got 10, let's."
Oh, no, 100%. I think we felt Timber was one of our stronger songs. I felt that it had like, when we were writing it, it felt like a song that Divide by Zero, this is what Divide by Zero is. Like
Okay.
we've got our bass player crushes it. Our guitar playing is, it's not, we're not hammering on and things like that, like, minus the bear, but we're really playing some good music. And it's a long song too. I mean, there's, a breakdown in there, and there's this kind of dragged out, you know, kind of very, now that I think about it, very like kind of just emo-ish, as emo-ish as we could have been at the time. Uh, and we had some friends that were also doing their own stuff. They had just released a record that I don't know if you've ever heard of the Snake Across the Crown. They're on
Yes.
Fearless. So they had just released their record, and they had just got signed. And so two really good guys that wanted to work with us and put out the record. And we were like, well, let's put these other 2 songs on there, and let's put Timber on there before we re-record it, because we're going to keep Timber on the next record. And we've never done anything like that before. That was kind of neat. That was like, hey, we're going to kind of release this, teaser, if you will, on a different label, and that song will carry over onto the next record, and it'll be kind of like a bridge between the two. Really cool. I thought that was, I mean, I remember recording that little teaser. I had everybody sang on it. I had people come in. It was a real fun time, and the guys were just awesome to work with, and great art. I mean, it was fun. It was a fun time. And Timber, to its credit, kind of the actual song itself kind of stayed the same. Little small changes, me
Mhm.
singing. I think I I think I probably, while doing the record, was I reached out to Dan Precision to ask him about, how the recording went, and he's a great metal guitar player. He was founding father of 88 Fingers Louie, founding father of Rise Against. So he's got the tone in his head. Um, he's like, yeah, I think you were listening to like Thrice or Strike Anywhere a lot when you were recording it with me, and that's true. Like it's different. I'm singing it a little bit less volume on the earlier version, trying a little harder on the Answer to No One version.
It's interesting you say that because probably way too involved of a me going on and meandering. But so I'm in the process of trying to create the world's perfect playlist, right? I'm like over 7,000 songs
Holy
right
cow.
now working on it. But when I've added the divide by zero songs, I start chronologically when I add them. So I see that Timber's on there, and I'm thinking, okay, but I've already added it on there without ever giving the version on Answer to No One a deep listen. And I was listening to it today, and I was like, it sounds a little different than the version that is on my playlist because that's the one that always
100%.
comes up. So I listened to both of them side by side, and I was like, no, like kind of like exactly what you're saying. The the vocals are a little punchier, they're a little more in there. The guitar seems to be slightly different. I was like, this is a different version. I just assumed without ever getting into it, without ever giving a deep dive, that you just dragged and dropped
Yeah,
the
just dragged
same
in. Yeah,
song. Yeah, but it's different. So I'm glad that I was able to give it that close listen and listen to Timber again. And here's a you might care, you might not care, kind of a weird fun fact story. It was again the same Lauren girl that dropped me into
don't
that.
we all?
She knew these guys that were in the process of starting a band, and I was like, "Dude, I'll try out to be their vocalist." So we're sitting there, and they were like, like what is influencing you? What are you listening to at this moment in your life? And I was like, Timber by Divide by Zero. They're like, we don't know it. I was like, okay, cool. Let's listen to it. So they listened to it, like, this is a really amazing song. I was like, I know. We should start a band that
Oh
sounds just
man, a
like
pleasure.
this. But they kind of wanted to sound more like Gorilla Biscuits, and that was not where I was at in the mid 2000s. So
Yeah,
it ended up not working out. But that song Timber was at that moment. This is exactly what I want my band to sound like. I want to sound like what you guys were doing with Timber. So
that's awesome. That's great. I mean, it. There is a video of us playing that song um, in Madison. I want to say we opened up for Spitalfield, and it translates pretty well live to what it sounds like on the record. I I think that's a kind of a thing that I would kind of stress when I talk about Divide by Zero. We sounded like the record. Like if you came and saw us play Answer to No One, like Hold On sounded like Hold On the record. And there was nothing added to it that we couldn't play live. The guitar player Tom had such a tone on his guitar that it translated when it was live. It sounded really, really good, you know. Um, Grave live is just as exciting on the record. It jumps out like it's you could hear that when Brian comes in with the drums, when it's just like he's hitting the notes. It's like like you can it it's almost like you're listening to us live. And I really like that part of the record. There's no bells and whistles. It's just us playing. Obviously it's recorded and really nice stuff, and I'm overdubbing this, and there's like four guitars, but I mean it sounds good. Live it sounds good, and on the record it sounded good too.
since you mentioned Brian, how'd that come about where he was kind of backup vocals? It's fairly
He's got a
rare.
great voice.
It's fairly so I mean obviously it's fairly rare for drummers to provide vocals at all. Was it he was the best other singer in the group? So
100%. Yeah, I really I really not pressured, but I really like was invoking the whole like everybody needs to sing. Like I want everybody to sing. Especially when I became the singer, I was like, we're all singing.
That's
Like if
fair enough. I
like
mean, they backed you into a corner, so
yeah, exactly. And Brian harmonized a lot on Logan's Lost records. And there are some harmonies on Answer to No One that are, I mean, I've never been able to duplicate that with anybody else. I mean, it's his voice really ranged well with mine. It was very unique. And I remember he would have like he'd be playing and he would have to like flip the mic and would come in. It wasn't, I think we even toyed with having him have like a headset one time.
oh,
It was but he had a great voice. I mean, there are some great harmonies. I think I got John involved too. The bass player, he sang. I mean, but Brian was a great singer. He had a good
excellent.
voice.
Um, so I guess how long did it take you guys to write the 11 songs? What did that writing process look like?
We wrote all the way up to the recording.
Okay.
You know, isn't that hilarious? Where you're like, I've got 48 or 46 minutes of songs, and I still think I need to add one more song. Because at the time, I think it was like, which is two, four, six, eight. I think we had 10 songs, or no, we had 9 songs, and we were like, we need to have a 10th song. We didn't even think about like record length. We just thought about titles on the back. So accept ourselves, we wrote all the way till like we were writing it while we were there in the
Okay.
studio. We were finishing it in the studio. I was writing lyrics. I was listening to Refused while I was doing it. Um, but the right out of the gate, we had, those songs with mirrors, the EP, and we were writing. We always were writing, like constantly writing. I was. It's a great like when you want to write. Like people say, hey, I think I was just listening to a podcast. They were talking about like when you come up with ideas, like how do you come up with ideas? And they're like, well, yeah, when we shut the door and we just think of ideas. Like that's like what we would do. We would just, if we're gonna write, we're gonna write. We're gonna practice. We were like, it was the first time Divide by Zero, especially for Answer to No One, it felt like we were not a job, almost like sports practice Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you know, like drive to Lamont, drive to Tom's house. We're going to practice and we're going to write songs and we're going to learn songs. And it felt like going back to that kind of routine thing of sports, high school sports. Like other bands, you'd practice here and there, can you get together? But maybe a little bit with Logan, not even Logan's Lost, we toured more, but like those beginning days of Divide by Zero is like, we got to practice. We got to, this isn't Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice. We need to like get out there. So if I'm name dropping sports stuff, it's, I'm sure if you looked it up, you'd be like, oh, that's why he said that. So we were writing songs, we were bouncing ideas off each other. It felt like a startup. It felt like this very cerebral moment where songs were, I've got this part. I'm going to bring in this part. I'm going to bring in this part. So it was kind of a Four Musketeers type of thing. It was really interesting. But it created a lot of conflict if someone really fought for a part, like there's parts of these songs where we had to throw it in there because it was just too good not to be like left on the cutting room floor. I think like Guillotine, there's a part where the song kind of transitions into like a whole different part of the song. It's towards the end. And that's just because it was a good guitar part that we couldn't not leave. We had to figure out how to get that into the song. And it changed the song and it added another like 2 minutes to the song. But it was so good we didn't want to leave it on the cutting room floor.
That's great. How did you guys end up, I guess, hooking up with Jumpstart, making that that switch from Sinister to Jump? Like, did they enjoy your live show? Were you sending out demos?
Yeah, that's a good relationship that was started by just being on the road. We'd go
Yeah.
through like State College, PA, where Jeremy would throw on shows and where he had a home base. He was from Jersey and he was out in and he had a couple other bands and he had released bands like Belvedere and some other bands that were out. Um, and it was just a relationship that grew over time. Every time we'd go on tour with Logan's Lost, by the way. And then when Divide by Zero started, he got really close with the guitar player Tom, and they hung out a lot more than um, like then the bands would hang out. So they'd go out and hang out. He would, they'd party or whatever. And so that relationship really helped us uh, because he was like, well, I'll put out your record. Like, Tom's a great guy. I like Tom. I like your band. I'll put it out. And at the time, we had kind of gone through the cycle with Mirrors, and Sinister wanted to do another EP. They wanted to say, hey, let's do another 5 songs. And the band wanted to do more. We wanted to kind of get pampered a little bit. Like, oh, Jeremy's like, well, I'll give you a budget for the record. We'll release it. It'll be this and that. And I think we were kind of like, yeah, let's do it. Like, we're not obligated to do anything. We're not loyal to anybody. Let's just do it. Might have caused a rift between us and Sinister at the time. But the band was really just focusing on where can we go? What's the next step? Because Answer to No One was coming out right at a time, like I had mentioned earlier, that a lot of bands were just getting bigger
Hmm.
and more exposure, stuff that obviously, why are you in a band? What do you want to accomplish when you're in a band? Do you want to tour for the rest of your life? Do you want to tour for a little bit? What's your end goal? And I think we thought that Divide by Zero had a chance to be something bigger and broader and more robust than what it was. And putting out a full length was the next step. So we had the songs, well, sort of. We had most of the songs, and we had someone that was really enthusiastic about putting the record out. So we just kind of said, hey, we're going to go with Jumpstart, and that was it.
So just based on your relationship with them, they agreed to
Yeah.
do you didn't have to send them demos or anything like that. They just,
No, they had seen us play a bunch of times. We've been on tour. Like I said, the Tom was it created a relationship with like the East Coast. He knew a lot of people out in like Jersey and Pennsylvania just because he's a very charismatic guy. I mean, that was the one thing about our band. We were very like, we like to talk to people, we like to hang out, like to party. Like that was that type of music, where we were going. We were, colleges, and we were now at kind of, we're in our middle 20s. Things, we were just very happy and energetic to be able to make decisions by ourselves, be on tour. We were road dogs at the time. I would bartend or, you know, go on tour. I think I was probably living with my parents at the time, so my overhead wasn't that bad. So I think all of us were really.
so it sounds like the songs came together pretty effortlessly for you guys. Like when you were writing songs based on your sculpture metaphor, did the guitar come first and then you fit the vocals in later? Would you have the riff first in your mind, or would you have the words or the theme kind of first in your mind?
Yeah, I think it was probably like organic all around. I think the words always came last. I mean, I was never a poet. I never had like a book of poetry that, wasn't like Under the Bridge, and Rick Rubin's like, what's this? And they're like, oh, it's a poem. He's like, well, this is Under the Bridge, like it's not like that. This is like, oh, that's a great riff. It's got this great breakdown. I'm gonna go home and jam it out and see if I can come up with something. I mean, that was kind of how it was. And even the guys would bring in melodies and we try to work around, try to adapt them. But the music always came first. We'd always have full length songs. It was so funny back then too, because we would record it. We tried, and now it's so effortless to record like a practice, but then it was like you had to set up mics and you didn't want to be too close to the drum set because it would sound like you would just hear the drummer like this, the kick drum, dum 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 dum. So the the I would say that my weakness was thinking of something to write about as a singer, to try to create, like, to manipulate the words into like a song. That was always a hard time. I always fell back on the same kind of, subjects. It was, I wish I was a little bit more worldly. I wish I knew a little bit more. I wish I had a little bit more exposure to, I don't know, to widen my vocabulary. But it really fell back on like girls and being hurt. you know, it, 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 under all of that, it was a lot of uncertainty. It was a lot of like, is this ice going to break or is it strong enough for me? You know?
I mean, I think that idea of writing songs about being hurt and girls worked for the Ataris, right? I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
that defined their entire career. And then when John made the mistake of trying to write songs about something else, all the fans turned on him, and then
Yeah,
he said, like, I'm sorry, man. I'm 40. I'm in a happy spot now. I can't
I
write
know.
songs about
I
breakup.
know.
Like, um, so then the recording process, I know you said you were writing even as you were going into the studio.
Yeah.
Um, that work out kind of where you guys wanted to record with. Obviously, Dan Precision, at the time, even still now is kind of a legendary producer. So was that like definitely where you guys wanted to go, or it worked out because it was local, or I
I
mean,
think it was a combination of being local, a little like buzz awareness, maybe it gives us a little bit of like scenester points,
okay,
you
for
know.
sure.
I didn't know him personally, but he was seemed relatively nice, really nice guy. Loved the first Rise Against record. Obviously 88, was like a mainstay in a lot of our like playlists. So I was like, oh, this is kind of rad. And he was I always like to say he was a pro dude with pro gear. Like his guitar was unlike any other guitar out there. It sounded great. His amps, his like kind of his skill level was here when we were all here. He was playing chess, we were playing checkers, right? So it felt like he could help elevate our sound, and which I 100% think he did. You know, I mean, I think we might have inhibited him a little bit by being like, we want to sound a little bit more like Thrice, and he'd have to like listen. He's like, why would you want to do that? But whatever, you're paying me. So like it definitely helped us. It was like, hey, this is what you got to sound like if you want to sell these records, and we kind of had to like buck up and really just get to work. And gosh, it was tough too, because it wasn't like we didn't have like, we had to go in there for a little bit, record. I had to come back, do vocals when I could. I was working. I mean, it was not a fluid situation. We had to like come in and come out. We had to spend like, I think we did it over like a 2 month period.
Wow.
Like April or May or March or April. It wasn't like, it was a long recording. And funny enough, it was the first time I was recording, and he wanted to hear the song. He wanted to know what key the songs are in first, and he wanted to see the lyrics. So I had to write out all the lyrics, and I had to put like D, C, B, G, whatever. And he would, as we were recording it, this was our first introduction to Pro Tools as well. So he was like, just say the word like he was a master at just kind of getting all that in check. So I had to go back and redo a couple things that, um, that he was able to pick up that we wouldn't. It's really cool, really cool.
How much of his influence do you think then like changed kind of what the song sounded like, your demos going into the studio compared to the final result? I mean, would he challenge you to change up a guitar part, or was it just tuning, or what what was his level of influence over the album?
I his it was just more professional, I think anything. I mean, his name is Dan Precision for his reason, like
For sure.
it's a very like professional, it might not seem like because it was in a basement here and there, or like there was, like it was a very professional atmosphere, regardless of you walked upstairs and it was his house. Um, I, there's a couple echoes on the record. I don't know if you listen to it. There's kind of like this, it's very not natural sounding repeating of words. Like I think there's it's on Accept Ourselves. There's like it's a delay or a repeat of a word, and it's like kind of fades and it gets a little quieter as it goes. I wish he would have said no to those, you know, because I look back at some of those records and or some of those songs, and I think we just kind of tried to sound a little bit more cooler than the song needed to be. Um, but uh, he just he just made us a better sounding band because we were concentrating on making sure we were hitting every note as best we possibly could. So when we got out of that, we were a better band. We were a better sounding band. I do definitely think that. Like it not change it didn't change. I mean, we didn't want to sound like we didn't change our songwriting. We just sounded better because we were concentrating more. We were activating a part of our brain while playing that didn't exist before the recording.
Very nice. I'm glad you mentioned Accept Ourselves. Was that intended to be the closer then? Is that kind of why you wrote it? Because it's the perfect closer to the album. So
It's funny because that's the song we were writing right at the end of the record. The we didn't feel like we had a song that could end the record, which is weird. Like any song can end a record. I mean, it's not like you had to, but um, I don't know if we had a title yet at that time. I think this might have created a title. Uh, the idea of Accept Ourselves was like just kind of, I think that's probably where we might have gone as as a, as a, that was the trajectory we were going in,
okay.
kind of cursive, um, a little bit more instrumental, drawn out, uh, with that chorus that is kind of poppy. It's kind of low key. It's very dynamic. It's here, it's there. It's little explosions in the sky. It's this, it's that. Uh, we could never play it live. I'll tell you that. It just never. But it when we were writing it, it felt like the last song because of the way I was singing, because of the ending of the song, um, because then it really gave the record meaning. The answer to no one. It's basically it's your job to be like you answer to you. That's it. Accept yourselves, and it has like a double meaning. It's like accept yourself for who you are, and then accept yourself, which is the e accept, like so it probably if we would have tried a little bit harder, we could have maybe made the song a little bit more cleaner, if you will. But it was a song that we were writing and it came out great. And I I'm happy we did it. I just wish that we had it going into the session instead of writing it at the session.
Yeah, I mean, kind of talking about what you were talking about before, maybe some of the other songs were about relationships and girls. I like that the album kind of has that trajectory at the end where it's almost getting positive and uplifting and it's motivational at the end. At least that's how I interpret it when I was listening to today
Oh,
that like
you're
you
this
you've
the
got the album,
words.
you're driving through that dark tunnel and then there's the light at the end and you're
Yeah,
escaping.
and that's a lot to do with I'm becoming a better singer. I'm working on different rhythms and I'm working on different words and I'm pulling from different experiences. I'm it's it's a little bit of self interior kind of reflection. It's a little bit more of uh, not so much about relationships of like physical relationships, more mental you know relationships. It's becoming we're becoming a different band by the time Accept Yourselves ends. Like we are a different band when that song kind of starts, compared to like Grave, which is just like so it ends a little differently. And like I said earlier, I think it would have been a that Guillotine, those songs are probably what we would have sounded like. I don't know if I would have been able to sing them as well as I do Scars or Hold On, or not Hold On, but Northern Lights or Grave. Even The Year That Trembled. The Year That Trembled is like my favorite song in the record. Um, but the the band wanted to be a little bit more expressive. They didn't want to be just like a hot water music band by the time we were, which when I look back at it, I'm just like, that is the silliest thing. I don't even know why we were thinking that, because hot water music is the fucking greatest band on the planet. Why would we not just embrace, our idol and just try to be like, you know,
Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, to your point, yeah, why not just lean into it? But
yeah,
you end up with a sound that was unique and your own. Now that we're talking about it, I hadn't thought about that before. Do you think that obviously, influential talking about kind of your coming up with the Boll Weevils and everything, but do you think Chicago itself kind of played a role in shaping the sound of Divide by
oh yeah,
Zero?
totally. No, you're 100% correct. I mean, it's a gritty band. We're, you know, around Chicago a lot. We're driving by Soldier Field as it's getting rebuilt. We're playing in some of the greatest venues in Chicago. It is, whether we know it or not, it is shaping. I'm mentioning bars, I'm mentioning cities, I'm mentioning locations. I mean, it is no, there's no way that the city of Chicago is not like, the epicenter of like the central part of where I'm meeting everything is about everything in there. Like I probably could point out like six things that is Chicago related, you know, the bars, like, Scars has that. I think, I mentioned, the North Side. I mean, there's just bars on there that just had to be in the record because that was it was. It just like name dropped a bar. Just I always liked songs like that where like they say something and you just go, it's like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like, whoop, 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 he's like pointing at right after. I don't know if you've seen that one, or he's after the last one of the movies did. That's how it is. Like, oh, I know that bar. He just said I've been there. You know, the Green Mile. I know that one. The Green Eye. It's a play on words, but I know that one. I tried to do that as best I could.
I I absolutely love it. I mean, as a guy who grew up in that general area, I there's something about Chicago bands just in general, and it seems like with this show, I'm gravitating more towards those Midwestern bands with that grittiness and everything. So yeah,
Yeah.
I completely agree. Chicago was the fifth member of Divide by Zero when you guys
Oh,
recorded,
totally.
which is beautiful.
100%.
So I know you kind of went over the album as a whole. Did that the release of a full length then did that change kind of the way that you guys would play your live shows? Were your live shows getting longer as a result because you had more songs in your repertoire or
We were able to kind of choose and select the songs we wanted to play. I
okay.
mean, we would play Grave all the time. We played The Year That Trembled all the time. We played Bleeds and Bleeds all the time. But we had to choose between like Guillotine or Hold On. We couldn't play them both in the same night, right? It just that's 15 minutes of songs right there just between the two of them. Um, I think we had a little bit more pep in our step because we're like, oh, we got a full length. It's my first full length, like that I had written. It's got my, written by TJ Milici. So that's kind of exciting. So a little bit more perspective on how things are done, making sure you're choosing the right. I think we look back at it and it's a very clean album. It looks like, there's not much to it. The yellow border kind of really stands out. We wanted black and white photo. We wanted to feel very polyvinyl, like a little like, kind of American football-ish, very just kind of subtly awesome, if you will, if that's
Mhm.
even a phrase. Uh,
It is now.
it is, and it and and John Will like who took the photos. There's some really great photography. So all in all, we were just very happy with like the way we thought the album, we conceptualized it, how we recorded it, how it came out, the release. It was better than we could have ever imagined, right? We just were just super excited about having it and having something physical in your hand that you've recorded and that other people have got involved with the pressing and jumpstart. Even the thank you list, we were very meticulous about who we wanted to, you know, and we wanted to kind of make it clever because that's how it was. It was just everybody was just trying to be jokey and clever. So it felt like a culmination of like just everything were we just were like driving for and worked on and sweated on. And now we have it and it's in our hand. And let's get on the effing road and let's just get it out the door. Because we didn't have I mean, there was, some, I forget what the term is, but, some people were able to get the record in other places, but we had to hand deliver it. Like we had to go to a show. We had to go to the middle of, we had to go to Indianapolis. We had to go to both Carolinas. Like we had to get that CD in your hand. And so it was just get on the road, drive. And then I think about it, that type of like energy was not shared by everybody in the band. And that's when the band, shortly after this record was released, that's when Brian left and then John left because we were really excited about it and we wanted to get it out the door and and I think maybe the recording process might have been kind of hard. Um, but we were really gung ho about getting out there and we didn't really ask and be like, does everybody want to do this? Like, are we all on the same page? So, now that I think about that, that might have been one of the reasons.
I'm guessing Jumpstart was then pretty happy with the end result.
Oh yeah, I tried to get Jeremy to, chime in a little bit, but I mean, like I said, repressing this thing,
Yeah.
um, I think is a testament to how he feels about it. Um, you know, we played. He had us play out at his brewery, a few years back. So I think all in all, he was very, very happy with how it came out and what the potential that it had. So, and I'll be, maybe deep down inside after the band kind of went through a couple lineup changes, we were just still like, yeah, we got to do this. Like this, there's people that like it. Let's. keep it going. Let's keep it going as let's try to Frankenstein this thing. How do we get this out the how do we get on the road? And all of a sudden, I'm having flashbacks of the Eclectics, 10 years earlier, being like, oh, I got this tour. How do I Frankenstein this tour? How do I get people in? And how do and it's all of a sudden things are repeating itself. It's this repetitive behavior of like, how do I force something that maybe it's reached its end? So it's I'd like to think Jeremy likes the record. I think he does. Um, and I'm very thankful for him putting it out. It's just it's really unique for someone to be like, I'm going to put out your record. That doesn't happen that often.
Oh yeah.
Like especially at where we were at the time.
Um, just a question for me personally. I'm pretty sure the answer is no, but were there any songs that Divide by Zero recorded that never got released between the EP, the teaser, and the full length?
Gosh, I
Like,
I think there are. I think at the time, I think there's recordings of songs that didn't make it. Um, as uh, for Answer to No One, all the songs we recorded, we came to the table are on that record. Like we didn't have any extras, but I think for like Mirrors and maybe for the single, there are a couple songs that were recorded that just didn't, that are lost. They got lost in the ethos somewhere. They just disappeared. It's like the Willy Wonka digital, like it's up here somewhere, just moving back and forth. It's gone and nobody knows how to get it. Uh, we we were right. We like to write. Like the band liked to sit down and write songs and bounce ideas off each other. And it was a very collaborative experience. Everybody's input mattered.
man, I wish those songs weren't lost. Then that would be that would be amazing if we could finish this conversation with like, oh yeah, and here's two songs I in preparation for this, I just unearthed them on an old hard drive, and here we go. Like that would be the
it's funny when I play every once in a while, I play a riff of a song that we recorded, and I don't know the rest of the song. I just know the beginning of it, and I play it. I just fall back into it. It's it just kind of comes out, and then I'm like, I know this song. We recorded this song. What is this song? What's the rest of this song? And then put the guitar down.
well. I am exceptionally glad that the album came together the way that it did, and it really sucks that you guys kind of broke up as the band was evolving and as you were getting kind of on the upswing. But I'm glad that we have this artifact behind to enjoy.
Yeah, it's it's very unique, and it happens. When it does happen, it should be celebrated when a couple people get together and create something. Whether it's a family or a business or a record. They get together and they just figure it out. And the record, in this case, when the record came out, it was at that time the best of us. It was like we were doing the best we could. And to ask that of four, people it's just a unique situation that, if you're in a band or if you're in a business or if you're in a family, only you would know that. You would only know that feeling. I mean, I don't talk to everybody in Divide by Zero as much as some as others, but I know at the time we had incredible love for each other, and all we wanted to do was just make a great record. And I'm glad we put it out. it was worth it.
Yeah, you guys definitely, as they say, captured that lightning in a bottle. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
well, I definitely appreciate you spending even more time doing a deep dive on again one of my top 10. I don't.
That's crazy. I
I'm
can't even believe it.
I always throw this out at the end of all these conversations, but uh next year would be the 20th anniversary, right? So let's let's
Oh
put
my gosh.
let's put mirrors and timber, like all of it together, package it up. This is the complete Divide by Zero anthology, everything they recorded, and then you wouldn't have to throw tracks away because you'd have the
That's
additional
plenty.
tracks. It's a double LP now. Problem solved. See?
It's just a magical thing. It can happen, should happen. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. I mean, Sinister's not going to complain at this point, right? So,
No, I don't think so. I
no,
think they're going to be. I think they'll even get back together. They should get back together.
let's do it.
No, it's. I know that. I know that there's in. I'll be honest. I've tried to play some of these songs, and they do feel like they don't belong to me now. Like I don't know how to play them. I just don't know to like get into them. Like it's like a size too small or a size too big of shoe. It's it's. I think if I had the other guys in the band, it might like in the same room. I think we could probably I could probably get to that point. But I've tried, and I'm just like I can't even. What am I saying here? Why do I want to die? That's crazy.
It's
Like,
I mean, for your mental health and well-being, it's probably a good thing that the songs, no longer belong to you in that aspect, that you're happier and you're in a better place than you were in your mid-20s, right? So, but I mean, hopefully for anybody out there listening, they're in a better place than they were in their mid-20s,
absolutely.
because that's usually not the best time to be alive. So, I mean, it is at the moment, but in retrospect, no, not so much. So,
Well, the fact that you've taken this interest in this record is incredibly, like poetic. I really appreciate it. It's incredible.
it's amazing, and having this conversation allows me again to do this, not only the deep dive and talk to you about the album, but for me to do this intentional listening where I focus on everything. So this has been great, all in all. So I appreciate it, and that's amazing.
That was awesome.
So all your friends are dead and gone.
Hey, welcome back. This is Eric. Just had an amazing conversation with TJ and Milici going into all things Divide by Zero's Answer to No One. It was a fun episode. So glad that I had him on. TJ was such a cool guy, such a nice guy. Great kind of walking down memory lane, listening to one of my favorite albums. Unfortunately, as you probably heard last week, TJ has nothing in the works musically going on right now. It was nice if you heard the whole conversation. You know that he's not ruling it out, and he is imagining that at some point he's going to hit that point in his life where he will have a little bit of side time, spare time, so that he can work on some kind of musical project. And I think the world will be a richer place as a result. But for now, like I said last week, check out DuPage County Hardcore for all of your Chicago adjacent music needs. It's not just hardcore, it's also punk and ska and indie rock and hip hop and all music that came out of that general DuPage County area. I think they actually walked the line a little bit outside of the DuPage County line, but yeah, check it out. And thanks for sticking around. I've got an amazing guest lined up for next week as well, so you won't want to miss that. As always, appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
You'd better make room for me. I'm coming through with my